thank you. Thank you. Is this on? Hello.
Yes, it is. Oh, you don't need to get too close to it. It's picking you up.
It'll pick me up.
It does.
I wish
indeed.
someone would.
Well, I think there will be some offers if you get it. Thank you for being our guest of honour, Louise, this weekend.
Well, thank you for having me.
My 7-year-old self is still pinching himself that I'm with Leela. But of course, I got to meet you myself a few years back when you came to the Doctor Who set to meet Peter Capaldi.
I did.
Have you told that tale yet? Or
I think I probably have.
Well, I'm sure
you'll bear with me. My dear friend Matt Evenden, who probably a lot of people in the room know, who takes care of my website and all that kind of thing, he said, I've arranged for you to come and have a day on the set. Well, an hour on the set. And it was the story with all the school children.
Forest of the Night? Yes.
So, whenever you've got kids around, there's chaperones, there's time pressure, so the atmosphere was slightly tense. And as we walked onto the set, Peter was walking up and down, obviously going over his lines. And Matt said, come on, we'll go and say hello. And I went, no, let him be. Let me talk to him after he's done the scene, because he's, focusing in. And he walked past and he walked past and he walked past and he walked, and then he stopped and then he looked, and then he looked back and then he looked again, and then he went, "You're Louise Jameson." Seriously. And he went, "Come with me." And he took my hand and he marched me onto the set, and I could see the director. She was going like this. And she was going, quiet, everybody, this is Louise Jameson. She played Leela in 1977. First episode went out January the 1st. He had everything. Talk about fanboy. And then I said, "Thank you so much, Mr. Capaldi." And then I started, he went, no, photo. Someone's got to take a photo. So we had all that. I was so touched by his...
Did you have a yo-yo with you? Have I made that up? Did you
I think...
Matt brought one along, because I think he wanted to recreate that picture.
Yes, I'm not sure whether the photo was... It might have been taken. I can't remember if it was taken with the yo-yo or not. But there he was, being just... So I have a David Tennant story as well.
Go ahead, please.
Which is way back before he was Doctor Who. He was doing theatre and education in Scotland. And my niece, who's now in her 40s, was then in her very early 20s. I think I've got my maths right. And she was stage managing it. And when David discovered that Abigail's auntie was Leela, he said, "Oh, can I be introduced to her?" And in the pub afterwards, he was like, "And what's Tom Baker like to work with?" All those questions. And then fast forward 30 years to Mark Gatiss's civil partnership with Ian Hallard, and we're both guests at the wedding. And David is brought over to be introduced to me. And I said, "Well, actually, we've met before." He said, "Well, I remembered, but I didn't think you would." And at that point, he was playing Hamlet. And I said, I cannot get a ticket. And he went, "Leave it with me." And honestly, we got first night tickets. We had pink champagne in the dressing room. It was just...
So there are some advantages to doing
some advantages. I didn't even have to get my knife out.
Okay, so if I can ask you to step back to 1976, when you first came on board on Doctor Who, which is why we're all here today. I'm not going to ask you if you could have envisaged seeing yourself 40 years later here, because I'm sure you couldn't. But were you aware at the time that what was going on at the BBC and Television Centre was a bit of a powerhouse? You had Morecambe Wise, Doctor Who, all these great shows coming out. Did it feel exciting to be there?
It did feel exciting to be there, but, I was so young. I just thought life was going to be like that forever. And to a certain extent, it has been. I mean, during that time, I was going out with someone who was related to Jordanian royal family, and I was, I had a private tour around Petra. I had no idea what a sort of privilege that was at the time. And again, to be working in that iconic building at that iconic time, I think it's very... sad, not so much. I don't have the same affection for the building that a lot of actors do, but for the creativity that was going on within it and the respect for the actors and their creativity, i.e. rehearsal time, is now a thing of the past. And I think that's a dreadful shame. And I think sometimes it really shows in the work.
Absolutely. Is it a very different atmosphere in terms of, let me try and get my words together. Then you would rehearse and record, no sorry, you wouldn't rehearse and record, you would rehearse for weeks beforehand and then come into the studio.
We do a 10-day rehearsal period.
Right, okay.
And then we would either do rehearse record for 2 days, or we'd rehearse all day and record in the evening. Personally, I like the rehearse record, because your adrenaline's up the whole time then.
Presumably you go to the canteen and there would be, I don't know, Dave Lee Travis or somebody like that. There'd be famous people everywhere.
We had to go up on a Wednesday night because that was top of the pops.
Ah, right, okay.
And
Were you ever in the audience, lurking in the background?
No, my brother was. My brother got in the audience. He was on on an opening shot once, dancing with his then fiancée. I was very Joe. Well, Joe.
So, fame was a bit different then. You weren't stopped in the street, were you?
A little bit. Not. I mean, there's no fame like EastEnders fame. That was quite tricky.
Did you enjoy EastEnders?
Yes.
Okay.
I really loved my family.
Yes.
You know, who wouldn't want to go into work with those two boys, day in, day out? But the recognition that came with it, and it's quite hierarchical, EastEnders.
Okay.
I mean, literally, the people that run it are on the floor above you, and so you get all this. You'd have people waiting for your autograph at the barrier when you're going in. You're this kind of revered talent, and then the barrier comes down, and it's like you're 1 minute late, and if you're on the set without having learnt your lines, you're in trouble. And it was just very us and them.
But it must have been nice to have a regular wage coming in all the time.
Yeah, got my kids through uni, yeah. Perfect timing for me.
But is a soap something you want to do again?
I would love to go into a soap with a smashing storyline. Yeah, to go in and, you know, have a real good story arc. The difficult thing about soap is that its very nature, it just goes on and on and on. So you can't really get those story arcs going. You can't really build the music of your part.
Perhaps Rosa could come back and have an affair with Danny Dyer.
He gave me a heart attack, didn't he? Off camera, one phone call to the cafe. I mean, they sacked me, you know. They did it very unceremoniously. They told the press before they told me. I've done 9 series, you know, for them. And in the November they said, we want you to take over the Vic. We want you to be the linchpin of the series. How do you feel about signing for 5 years? And I ummed and ahed and thought, yeah, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. They changed the producer, and 12 weeks later I was out. I know. And they said, as my hand was on the door handle, he told me, and it's new producer, comes in with a broom, I get it, it's fine. But whenever I've left or they've decided to let me go from a series, I've been called into the press office and they say, what are you doing next? How can we help you? What can we do with publicity? Can we help you on your... all that. Mm-hmm. As I was leaving, he went, oh, by the way, it's in the press tomorrow, and it does contain the word axed. And you just think, what? Why are you treating me like that? That's not going to put more bums on seats for you, and it's certainly not going to help me get work in the future. It was just, I shouldn't reiterate it really, but that's when I started writing. So, because I thought, never again will my life be in someone's hands like that.
One door closes.
Yeah, exactly. So, in a way, I should be grateful to it, but I'm not.
Well, I'm never going to watch these things. Was that your one-woman play that you wrote then? Or?
Yes, well, Helen Goldwyn wrote it, actually. I can't take full credit.
Okay.
We collaborated, and she did it. And we're collaborating again. We've got two television series that we want to write at the moment, which we're touting around. And one of them has had a sniff of interest from a company called Acorn International, which is an American streaming company. Be a life changer if it happens. Absolutely. So I'm holding my breath till I turn blue.
But you've never stopped working, more than anyone, I think, in the Doctor Who universe. You've carried on.
It's a bit of a workaholic, aren't I? Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure it's healthy.
We get to benefit.
Thank you. But I do, if I had one wish, it would be to go back in time and be a better mum.
Really?
Yeah. I suspect every mother in the room would probably say the same thing. I think in the dictionary for mother, it should read guilt. Should be the definition. Yes, I wish I would do fewer tours and have spent a bit more time in them. Yeah.
Talking of tours, you told me you were about to go back into the theatre. What's that we've got to look forward to?
I did a play last year called Vincent River. It's a really, really dark piece about hate crime, written by Philip Ridley 20 years ago. I think it had its last outing 10 years ago with Linda Bellingham. And I'm doing it with it's a two-hander. And the play starts with me inviting my stalker into my apartment. And you take it from there. And the stalker is played by a brilliant young actor. It's his second job, called Tom Mahi. Watch out for him. He's going places. And he's adorable to work with. So, but I'm nervous. I'm thinking my theatre days might be winding down. Yeah, I do.
I remember you once saying many years ago that you much prefer theatre to TV because of the immediacy to the audience.
But I get scared now. My brain just doesn't. It's just not as quick as it was. And then, it's not bad for 68. I'm jogging on. But it's not what it was at 28. And I could read a script 3 or 4 times and it would almost be there. I have to spend hours on it now. And before I go on stage, once I'm on, it's fine. But that 10 minutes before I go on,
You have
it's
to come
unpleasant.
you have to come and do more of these.
Yeah.
Your time.
I can chat till the
We're happy with that.
cows come home.
So as well as David Tennant and Peter Capaldi, of course the other modern Doctor Who person you've seen a lot of is Mark Gatiss. You've worked with him quite a bit, haven't you?
I have, lovely Mark. He offered me, have you seen his Christmas horror stories, P.D. James thrillers, horrors, what are they called, horror stories? Ghost stories.
Ghost stories, yeah.
I did a thing called Tractate Middath. And for months, it's the only job I've ever been offered by text. Are you free? No, but I can be. Be free. Okay, you've got this job. Thanks. It was like, it really was like that.
Very modern.
Yeah, it was great. And I had to play myself 30 years younger. So I said, well, who are you casting as the younger me? And he went, you? I went, no. He said, it's amazing what they can do with CGI nowadays.
But they did do some CGI.
They did do some CGI, yeah. Yes, I had a facelift on television. I thought, oh yeah, maybe I should.
So I think famously, your relationship with Tom Baker has changed very much in recent years. You're like the best of friends now, aren't you?
We do. We get on brilliantly. It's probably because we sit back to back and we don't have to actually face each other. Headphones on. But he very publicly and very humbly apologised for not treating me very nicely back in the day. So it's quite hard to dirt mouth him now about the way he behaved. So I'm just very grateful that we're. And occasionally I get a little email from him going, thinking of you, hope we're working together soon, or he's read a script that we're about to record, and he goes, well, really looking forward to seeing you next week. And it's just thoughtful and sweet, and he's adorable.
Because you do a lot of the Big Finish stuff.
Loads of Big Finish, and I've just been asked to direct one of Sylve's.
Oh,
That'll be fun. Keep him in.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you enjoy directing more
I love
than acting,
directing.
or?
No. I've always preferred acting. But I do love directing. I like directing badly behaved teenagers. I do. Because they've got chutzpah, because they've, the really naughty ones have lived a life, and they've got a weird kind of daring that a lot of very well-behaved teenagers don't have.
So that your experience with Tom Baker probably came into play.
Yeah. If you can handle Tom, you can handle anything. Yeah.
I'm going to reach out to questions from the audience shortly. Just to let you know that Louise has to head off straight after today, so she won't be hanging around. So do think about some questions you want to ask, and put a hand up and I'll pass them over. Yes, we have a microphone down here. He always seems quite surprised by this moment.
He's training for the marathon.
Absolutely. Marathon's already been gone. Gentleman down here.
Special guest mic runner today.
Oh, wow. Oh,
hey.
wow. This chap down here, yes.
Louise, how lovely to see you again.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for Tenko. A fantastic series. Looking at it now, very forward-thinking with the fantastic roles for women. I just wonder what your thoughts are on the industry now. How are things really improving for women
Well,
actors?
as you probably know, there's an amazing 50-50 movement which has sprung out of equity, where women have been championing women's roles. There's a very strong feminist just taken over the globe, hence Amelia. Those of you that haven't seen it, 27 women on stage. It's a really fabulous sight to behold. They had a mother and baby show the other day, first one, and my friend who's in it sent me a recording of what was going on in the auditorium, and in the most poignant, quiet moments you could hear coming up from the back row. But it was I wasn't there, sadly, but it was a joyous occasion. And as you know, when I was a single mum, if somebody had thrown the doors open to a theatre for me to say, come and see this show, albeit with the cacophony of kids in the auditorium, it was still, it's a wonderful thing. We've got the all-female Richard II just closed. We had the all-female Julius Caesar. We've had the all-female King Lear. I mean, it's been... I myself were gained a part in Madness of George III, again with Mark Gatiss, who is brilliant, by the way. I think it's going to transfer. So if you want to see the show next year into the West End, I played a man, and I'm not sure about gender blind casting. The jury's out for me. I think anything that bursts the bubble is not a good idea. I think what we really need is more women writers. And when that happens, you can't expect a 22-year-old bloke to write about the menopause, because he's never, I know, I'm sorry. I said the M word.
22 minutes into the interview.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like we can't whinge on that we haven't got the roles, because you write what you know about, don't you? You write what you're connected to.
Is pay an issue in theatre between genders?
Yeah, I mean, touch wood and whistle. I've never. I mean, not that I study other people's bank accounts, but I always think, what am I worth? Okay, I'll go for that. And I believe in unions, and I believe in having a limit on the that there's got to be a decent working wage. And for a long time in the 70s and 80s, you would get extra for the number of children you had, which I thought was actually right. I think that, actors or not, I think across the board, that's a rather wonderful way to go. I think right on the top level, there is a discrepancy between men and women, but I think the level I'm at, which is more a twinkle than a star, I think I've probably done all right.
Star in our eyes.
Oh, thank you.
Can I have another question from the audience, please? Question over there. Thank you very much.
In Big Finish, you played Leela in the Gallifrey series. What was it like working with Lala Ward?
I love working with Lala. She's because she's she's a scientist, Lala. She just has that brain, and I'm a homeopathy, reflexology, and she just dismissed. No. We both have dogs. She trains hers with a little clicker, and I've got mine all over me. But we really, really get on. We're like, I think there's like a jigsaw puzzle. We just fill in the bits for each other. I can't remember the name of the story in Gallifrey, but we had to switch personalities, floating in some tank. Yeah. And she loved it. She was like, oh, is this what it's like being you? She was like...
Do you get together and bitch about Tom?
No. I said, what she was asked in one of these, what's he like? She said, he's the nicest man I've ever been divorced from. Mind you, now I'm not sure she'd have this. I don't know.
True, yes.
I'm not sure she'd have the same answer. Yeah.
Another question from the audience, please. Oh gosh. Do you want to go to the wherever?
Hi, Louise.
Hello.
Probably a bit of an embarrassing question, but I'll try and explain it in the best possible way. Your character, your companion, as a companion, was so different to the others at your time. Obviously, because of how you dressed and how you looked and how you acted. Obviously, as men actors, like even though I go into drama shows and stuff, like you go to your costume and go, I'm not wearing that. I don't really like it. How did you feel and react? And were you comfortable going on TV with your costume as you were? And how did where did the idea come from?
You know, I get asked this question quite a lot, and I'm never quite sure how to answer it. So at the time, I think in a way there are two answers. There's my 70s answer, which is, you know, she was a woman brought up in the jungle. She would wear dead animal skin. It was very hot. There wouldn't be a lot of it. So it didn't seem to me to be gratuitous. Now, in 2000 and where are we? Time travel? 19. I go, of course, it was completely sexist. And, you know, they've made her this feisty, intelligent woman, but they've taken her clothes off to do it. That's the compromise, I suppose. And, you know, Philip famously said it's for the dads. And I later married one of those dads who confessed to going, I'll watch television with the children, darling. He was divorced before I came on the scene, I hasten to add. So I suppose that was true. Yes, it was a sexist costume, but you have to kind of set it in its context. And what I would now consider, I think the Me Too movement is phenomenal and has done, I mean, a lot of women have dissed it. You know, they're going, oh, stop whinging, get on with your life. But I think there's some women have been so badly traumatised, all they can do is type #MeToo. That's all they've got the courage to do. But they now know they're not alone. And I think that's wonderful. And I do think we've had to address a lot of casual sexism, which on the face of it isn't very harmful, but it's just made everybody aware that they've got to be careful. And some women are rocked by sexism, and some can cope with it fine.
Thank you for saying that. Although, hand on heart, you must look at some photos, think, oh, I did look really good.
I tell you what, I look at them and I think, what were you worried about? Because I didn't, at the time, I didn't think. There were times on stage, this sounds big, there were times on stage I felt beautiful. I can't say I ever really, really felt that, had that confidence off stage. And I don't know why that is. I suppose you're speaking someone else's words, you're being endowed with something, someone's paid attention to your costume, your makeup, your hair. You've had other people going, yup, that works. But in the privacy of your own bedroom, I'm going,
None of us agree with you. But I'll let you have it. Another question from the audience, please. Zach in the Fez.
Thank you. I just want to ask, throughout your career as an actor, not just in Doctor Who, have you ever received a script, read it through and completely disagreed with it for whatever reason? Because I know occasionally actors do they do disagree with what's written down. Have you ever had that?
That's a really good question. I think one of the reasons I was sacked from EastEnders is they were going to make Rosa racist. Her daughter was going to get pregnant by a black man. And at the time, I had a 17-year-old mixed-race son in school. We all know what school kids can be like. They all knew he was, you know, Rosa's real son, as it were. And I went to the producer and said, I can't play this character. She wasn't sold to me as a racist. And he said, well, we haven't written it yet. And I went, well, can we just nip that one in the bud? Because I absolutely cannot do that in a soap. I would play a racist in a film that was anti-racist, you know, if the message of the piece, but in a soap, people really think you are that person. And I was getting letters going, I don't know what to do this Christmas. You seem like a sensible woman. My mother-in-law wants to come. We don't get on. What should I do? And I wrote back and go, my family's as dysfunctional as everybody else's. I can't give you advice on that. I think Rosa might say, tell your mother-in-law to stay away, but I can't. So it's a different kind of, it absolutely depends on the message of the piece. So I don't think I've ever, the National Front have never sent me a script. Mr. Farage has never offered, or Farage has never offered me a job.
but it's a bit like, people like playing baddies, don't they? Because they
I like playing baddies, yeah. Wicked Queen was such fun.
Oh, wow. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. So would you ever... I don't want to do the whole, are you going to come back to Doctor Who thing, but if you could be a baddie, if you could come back and be a monster...
I'd come back in a nanosecond as anything into Doctor Who. Anything. I would absolutely love to.
How fascinating would it be to have an older Leela with
Yeah,
a
yeah.
female Doctor? That would be just incredible.
And she could be some kind of shaman guru with a football team of kids, couldn't she? Don't you think?
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
More questions, please? Chap down here. Yes.
So I've just done an emergency Wikipedia search to see what
See who
experience.
she is.
Yes.
See who you are.
I'm very young. I'm still catching up. No, I've just to see what your experience with radio drama was, because you've been doing Big Finish for a while now, since before the Fourth Doctor adventures. And I wondered, as someone whose time, particularly in Doctor Who, was defined really by like the physicality of the character, how you found the transition to doing voice acting. On the one hand, you're not sitting around in a trailer all day; it's very quick. But on the other hand, you kind of lose a fundamental part of your performance. So how did you find that?
I think the classical, good question. I think the classical training, without boring you with details, transfers itself to audio extremely well, because you have to paint the picture in a slightly heightened way. There are no films like there are on audio. I just think it's marvellous, and you cannot, any sound designers in the room?
No.
Hey, I think you're the god of radio. It's because it's so subtle, somebody limping, it's such like a subtle soundtrack on the back of that, and the audience don't even know they're hearing what they're hearing, but it just paints the picture. So as long as you're aware of that, aware that if it's raining, you've got to pitch it up. So you do. People do extraordinary things behind the microphone. They're doing, especially when they're fighting. I do the whole thing, but you just can't see it. You just can only imagine it.
Thank you. Very good question. Question right at the back. There is, I can't see who it is, but there's a hand up. Oh, yes, there's another one. Yeah, that of course. Oh,
You're doing great.
yes. Well done, Leela.
One of my favourite TV shows other than Doctor Who was The Amiga Factor, which I absolutely loved, even though it scared the bejesus out of me at times when I watched it when I was a bit younger. How did you find that coming back to do the audio?
I loved it because, and you probably don't want to hear this as Doctor Who fans, but I'm not trying to be 26. Because for Leela, I just pitch it up a little until you've got the audience seduced into believing you're that sweet young thing again. And then I can drop it and become who I am. But the beginning of every story is just slightly. And I didn't have to do any of that with Omega Factor because they've let me be, the age, just a wee bit younger. But they've let me be more or less the age I am. And it has a mature woman feel behind the writing. It hasn't been gratuitous in any way. And they even let me fall in love, which was, great. So I've really, really enjoyed it. And John Dorney is fabulous to work with. So,
Thank you for your question. There was the other question at the back. Making her do her work.
You are.
Yes.
Just wondered if you could share your memories of working on Bergerac in Jersey with John Nettles.
Oh, John. Oh. I think he's such a fabulous leading man. He every, he knew everybody's name, the names of all their children, whether someone had been ill or not. He was once every fortnight, because that's how long it took to shoot an episode, he would arrange for everyone to go out for a Chinese meal or a swim on our little beach that we used to go to. He was adorable and such a gent. He, in all those bedroom scenes, he never once took his trousers off. He used to, so we had this one shot where our feet were intertwining and the camera came up over our feet, over the duvet, and then on us doing pillow talk. And then they went, "We can see your trousers, John." And he got out of bed and he started to roll them up. And I said, "Oh, come on, John, we've known each other 2 years. And I just take them off." And he went, "No." He said, "If I get excited, I'm embarrassed. If I don't, you're insulted." So we'll just... So that was that. So that's John. I mean, just adorable. And all of them, we laughed a lot.
Is Bergerac coming back in some form? Have I heard
Yeah,
that?
I think it's coming back. I mean, I think they're just going to get a younger version. But he's a canny businessman, John, isn't he? Because he went from that to Midsummer, which is virtually the same show, and produced it as well as performed in it. And now he's sitting back and producing.
Do you still see him? Do you run into him from time to time?
At kind of charity dues, but yeah, no, I haven't seen him for a while.
Thank you for your question. All the way down here this time. Down here.
We're just getting it to run round.
Indeed, yes.
Louise, you said earlier about if you were invited to come back to Doctor Who, you do it like a shot.
Yeah.
There was a time, wasn't there, at the end of Tom Baker's reign when JNT asked you to come back? I'm fuzzy on the details. Can you elaborate on that?
He asked me to come back for the last story of Tom and the whole of the next season. And I said I'd come back for 2 stories. I'd do the overlap, but that I didn't want to commit for that length of time. And I think I'm right in saying, someone here will probably know better than me, that if I had done another season, I wouldn't have done Tenko, which actually I wouldn't have missed for the world.
So no regrets?
Not really, although although it would be lovely to go back in it now. Yeah. But that's the naivety of youth again, isn't it? I just thought these jobs would come tumbling in for the rest of my life. So.
Thank you. Question down at the very front here.
Hi. It took me 10 years of back scratching to get my missus through 15 years of Doctor Who until you said, "Silence or I will cut out your heart." And then it took about 10 seconds to get through all the rest of it, right up to Pitch Baldi. So thank you for that. What's your favourite bit?
My favourite bit?
Yes.
I love it when I think it's Robots, tries to explain why it's bigger on the inside.
The box. The boxes. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's my favourite, yeah.
Another question from the audience? Oh, Anthony's got a question.
I've got a question. Actually, can I ask a question to the audience first? Is this on? Yes, it is. Can I ask a question to the audience? Can I ask how many of you have listened to Atta Girl?
Oh.
Can I ask the rest of you, get it and listen to it? It is amazing.
Oh, have you met my agent?
No, I just knew it would be, but it is an incredible piece of work on audio and moving and dramatic and funny and just
so this is something
incredible.
This is something I devised.
Okay.
It's a true story which about the air transport auxiliary pilots in World War II. And there's an amazing woman called Pauline Gower who got 7 other pilots together initially, and there ended up being 110 women flying without under the radar, without light, through the cloud. They weren't allowed to go above or below the cloud, flying planes out to the front line. When planes were damaged, they had to be replaced. And these women did it, and they did it, and one in 10 died. And they often got shot at by the people who didn't even know they were arriving, so-called friendly fire, which I find an extraordinary expression. So they're fantastically brave women. So we did very much like Tenko. We took we took real women and then we built fantasy stories. All of it's based in truth, but we put it into a dramatic situation. We'd just been commissioned. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say to do 2 more, but I didn't say it. That'll be out next March. Yes.
They're very discreet.
Yes, yes.
People, yes. Can I take another question from the audience, please? I saw this hand go up first, or this Dalek go up first, rather.
This Dalek?
Yes.
Oh, Dalek.
Yes. Did you ever sad not to work with the Daleks?
Really sad. I've done it on audio.
Oh, okay.
But not on, yes. And when I got the job, I sat down, I thought 3 things. I thought I can now build those shelves. I can afford to. I can pay off my overdraft, and I can work with the Daleks. And none of it happened. I still have an overdraft, hey.
So, aside from Attigirl, if I was to go home and order one Big Finish on the train back, because it's my birthday, why shouldn't I? Which one should I order?
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Wrath of the Iceni by John Dorney. Beautiful script. I should have said The Abandoned, which was one I wrote, but hey, credit where credit's due.
I get the impression that you're how to put it, the Big Finish people are very much like family to you, aren't they?
Yeah, they're my plan B. They're my pension. I think David Richardson is a quiet genius. He never takes credit. You hardly know he's in the room sometimes, and yet conversation is flowing. Everyone's got a cup of tea in their hand. We've all arrived there on time. He's just been quietly working the cogs, cleared every script, cleared every bit of casting. I just think he's so
He's a master
gentle.
with an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah,
I can
he's an absolute, and a lot of it's up here.
Yeah, very clever man.
Yeah.
There was another question down the front. Yes, Robbie, yes.
Hello, Louise.
Hello, darling.
I was wondering, what have you been working with Big Finish recently?
I just did a story with Tom week before, with John Culshaw representing the Brigadier brilliantly. I mean, when the cans were on, it was uncanny. And Tom actually called him Nick twice. None of us corrected him. John just looked at me and went, I mean, what a compliment, really. And he's a gentle, sweet, lovely man to work with as well. But you won't hear it for 2 years, I think. It's 2 years down the line.
Because it's all recorded quite a lot in advance.
Yeah.
And so we've got lots more to come from
Yes.
the Big Finish.
And I'm writing one.
Oh, brilliant.
At the moment.
Okay.
But I can't tell you what it's about.
I'm mindful of the time, don't worry, we're going to let you get there early, but we've still got time.
No, that wasn't why I was scrolling.
Oh, no.
It's just 'cause you know when you're writing something, how many writers in the room? Oh, you write as well. God, are you married? How many other writers in the room? You know when you're writing something, it's like it becomes, you think everybody's as fascinated by it as you are. And you find yourself at dinner parties going, blah, 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 and everyone's kind of going, oh, please, change the subject. I feel a bit like that about the one I'm writing at the moment. And I've just read the most fantastic book called Save the Cat. If you are a writer and you haven't read it, I'd really recommend it. So it's just about the science of writing. And I did think, John Dorney again said, I think you should read this, because I tend to ramble a bit with my writing, like when I talk, ramble. And he said it'll just make you edit before it gets to him, basically. And he's right. It's an absolutely brilliant book. So, yeah, I recommend it.
Brilliant. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so
Okay.
I've got one last question.
Go on then.
What's the best thing that's happened to you because you were in Doctor Who?
I'm here.
Oh.
No.
You couldn't really have said anything else.
Actually, what I can say is, and I've got an enormous amount of work because of Doctor Who. I've got, all the Big Finish, obviously. Gary, my very first days filming, as a young boy, came and knocked on my dressing room door. His father was doing sound in the studio next to mine, and I hadn't even been on screen. And he said, he was clutching a bit of paper and a pencil and said, would I sign it for him? Gary Russell. So, of course, fast forward, thank God I was nice to him. just Big Finish would never have happened. So all a Big Finish, but also things like toast. I got Matt. Thank you. Matt Berry's a huge Doctor Who fan, and I know I only got the job because of that. I played a prostitute who was very good at blow football. Never thought that sentence would come out my mouth.
That feels like a good stepping off point. Louise, thank you very much for being our guest of honour. Ladies and gentlemen, Louise Jameson. If you could hold on. I'd very much like to give you this honour as for outstanding contribution to Doctor Who on behalf of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society. Louise Jameson, thank you very much.
I've got to get down to the microphone. Thank you so much. They said, oh, it's a shame you can't stay because we've got a real special surprise coming up. And I was going, what is it? And they went, we can't tell you. And this is it. And I'm incredibly touched.
You thought it was going to be John Nettles with his trousers
Oh,
on. On that note, thank you very much, Louise.